side.
Dirty souls, wolves are hauling. Can you hear the voices calling? Do you feel how they are dragging, waiting for a second to push you to your limits, going stronger, feeling better? But do you feel them? Can you hear them say?
Welcome to the Retirement Learning Lab, where we teach you how to retire without running out of money. My name is Van Richards, and this is the daily NASDAQ update for August the 18th, 2020. Thank you for joining us today. We have a lot of good information to cover with you. The market went to all-time highs today, and we're going to take a quick trip around the world and see what was happening. So let's get right to it. As we look at the map, we can pretty well see that the United States and Asia was up. So let's see exactly what was happening, where it was happening. In the United States, we saw some extremely good returns today in the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ hit another record. The S&P 500 went over top of the highest return that it had for the year, the highest return that it had to the year prior to the coronavirus market crash. That's astounding. We've actually made it all the way back. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are hurting financially, but let me tell you what. The stock market is going gangbusters from that standpoint. And the NASDAQ, which is what we're going to cover a lot today, has been doing extremely well. Let's take a look at the other markets around the world too. The European markets were mostly down, led by the FTSE down 0.83%. When we hop on over to the Asian markets, we can see that the leading market was the Sensex Bombay Index in India, actually in Mumbai. And it was up 1.26%. And usually, we don't see the Indian index up that much, but actually today was a very good day for that index. If we pop on up north to the Canadian markets, they were pretty stable, down just a little bit, led by the venture stocks in the Toronto Exchange. And then when we get into the stocks that we're going to talk about today, these are the feature stocks that we're going to have that we're going to discuss. The two stocks that we're going to discuss today are going to be ASML Holdings in the ADR, and ADR stands for American Depository Reserve. ADR means that this is actually a foreign stock. This is a stock that's from the Netherlands, but it's traded on the NASDAQ exchange here in the United States, and it's traded as an ADR. And it's quite a large company, as you'll see that when we talk about its holdings today and what it does. And then we're also going to talk about Activision Blizzard. Activision Blizzard is something that a lot of you know about. It's a gaming company, World of Warcraft, and also the Call of Duty games, which we're going to discuss just a little bit today. But let's take a look and see how those two stocks fared against the rest of the market today. As I mentioned earlier, we saw an all-time high today. We saw it spike up really quick. We dropped off somewhat, and then as you follow my cursor along, you can see where we ended up. The green is the NASDAQ 100. That's the 100 largest stocks, which pretty much represents what happened in the NASDAQ today. Remember that the NASDAQ is an exchange primarily of tech companies, but I don't want you to be deceived by the fact of tech companies. And that's one of the reasons why that we do this broadcast, is to show you the diversity that actually exists in the NASDAQ. And you'll see that significantly today when we talk about Activision and AMSL also. Now, when we look at what happened with ASML, ASML is the blue line, and they were off somewhat today. but we saw Activision up following the rest of the market. Let's see how this looked over the past 6 months. Now, this is significant. Follow the dancing cursor over here. This is where the market was back in between February and March when the impact of the coronavirus was first felt. And then when you follow it all the way over to the blinking green arrow, you can see that both markets, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, were up to all-time records today. And that's significant. Even though that ASML was off today, it has had quite a good run since the market fell back in between February and in between March. Okay, ASML, you may not have heard of this company, but this is a significant company. It makes possible a lot of the microchip things that go on in the world today. And what I want to do is I want to share with you, if I can, I'm going to take just a moment and do this just a little bit differently. So hang on with me because I want to teach you what this company does. I think that it's so important when you're investing in stocks that you understand what the companies do. Don't just buy it because of a rumor. Don't buy it because you heard that somebody else says that this stock is going to go up. Understand basically what they do. So I want to share with you, if I can get this to work over here for just a minute, I would like to share with you what ASML does. And I think that you'll be quite amazed from that standpoint. So let me bring this back up here for just a moment. All right. Bear with me for just a moment, and I think that you'll be quite impressed by this. So hang on. This is actually from a company that's called Trump EUV lithography. They actually do photolithography. And I think that rather than me telling you what it does, just watch along, and I think you'll enjoy this. I think that's amazing. It's called photolithography. Actually, this is something that's called EUV lithography. And if I can make it stop here, we'll go on to the rest of what we have to talk about today. Okay. Photolithography and EUV lithography is basically using light to imprint circuitry on a material. In the video that you saw, it was using light rays to imprint on tin, which is a unique process. Trump is a company. No, it's not Trump like T-R-U-M-P, like the president. It's T-R-U-M-P-F. Trump is a company that works in conjunction with ASML and uses this technology. And it's a unique technology that I think that it helps you to understand the potential. The smaller the circuitry that's available in semiconductors, the more efficient they work and the better they work. It's just an amazing process, and it's utilized in all kinds of different electronic devices, from telephones to computers to whatever. So when I started talking today about Activision Blizzard and ASML, my point was that ASML's technology helps Activision Blizzard do whatever it does, because the consoles that run the Activision Blizzard gaming software utilizes the technology that ASML uses. Now, if we take a look at what the stock did, let's run back over here just a little bit and make this larger so that you can see how it looks from this standpoint. If we look at what happened at ASML over the past 3 months, the green line that you see here was right after their earnings call. They had a good earnings call, and after that point in time, you can see the progress of the stock over the past 3 months. When we look at the stock over the past 6 months, if you follow the dancing cursor, this is back to that time in between February and March where the market fell so much. And this is where we are today. And if you take a look at where it was right after the earnings call, it had some increases and then it had some decreases too. So there's been some outside pressure on it. Now, when we look at this company, though, it has what we call a wide moat. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is a moat when we're referring to investments? Take a look at this. I think you'll get an understanding of it. If you have a company that has a wide moat means that they compete very well against their competitors. Their profitability is pretty well entrenched from that standpoint. There's not as much competition out there. So the idea of having a wide moat in a stock is a good thing. And when we look at ASML actually does have a wide moat. Now let's take a look at some of the reasons why. If we look at ASML's holdings, let me make this just a little bit bigger so that you can see it better. The close today was at 378.51, and the fair market value, now this is a fair market value that's projected by Morningstar. Remember that if you follow the very top of this page, it says hypothetical. That means there's no guarantee that this is perfect. And actually, in a moment, you're going to see that there are different analysts that have different opinions. Morningstar is just one company that does analysis. But Morningstar projects that based on the current activity that's going on at ASML, they do have projected profitability, but at this point in time, they're an overvalued stock. They're overvalued basically from 276 is the fair value to 378.51. Now, another thing that you want to pay attention to in ASML is it is a dividend paying stock. Now, if you're an investor that wants to invest and use income for retirement, and that's one of the things that we do on this show is we talk about how to use investments for retirement. That's the whole idea of the Retirement Learning Lab, is to teach you how to retire without running out of money. Some people like the idea of usually using stocks and their dividends, living off of the dividends to supplement their income. You do have to understand that when you're talking about stock dividends, there's a vast difference between a stock dividend and a bond dividend. Well, for one thing, bond dividends are next to nothing right now. But the guarantees that are associated with stocks are different than those that are associated with bonds. Bonds, if you were buying a government bond, you've got the guarantee of the federal government behind it. If you're buying the stock of ASML, the only guarantee that you have to its credibility is going to be ASML. Now, there is more credibility in a larger company than there is hopefully in a smaller company based on their profitability projections. And that's one of the reasons why we look at fair market value and current value to get an understanding of how stable that might be. If we went back a year, go back a year from now and you were looking at a company like, say, for example, Hertz, and you thought, well, Hertz is a very stable company. They're a car rental company. Well, quite frankly, they're in bankruptcy now, along with companies like JCPenney and several other companies that had been profitable in the past. So we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about dividends. Dividends can change based on whatever's going to be going on with that company. But right now we see the profitability of ASML as being pretty good. So the idea of having a forward dividend of 0.77%, if you own this stock, this is something that you could account for in your income. Now, you also sometimes, I don't have a chart right now to show you, but if you looked at a chart of the profitability of the stocks in the S&P 500, just on the value, that would be a minor portion of the increase in the overall value, because dividends make a big difference, using dividends to buy back in rather than actually taking this as income. But if you're in retirement, then you're wanting to use those for income. So let's move right along and see what's coming up next from this standpoint. The next company that we have is Activision Blizzard. Now, a lot of people know about this company. If you've got kids, or if you are a fan of games, you know what Activision Blizzard is. It's a gaming company, and two of Activision Blizzard's most popular games, one is Call of Duty, and there's a whole list of different companies, and I'm telling some of you something that you already know. If we look at all of the different, let me make this just a little bit bigger for you so you can see which ones are out there. This is Call of Duty titles from 2008. They started out with World of War, Modern Warfare, World War II, Advanced Warfare, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 3, Ghost, Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops. Now, the idea, though, is that this company in itself is continuing to grow. This is an analyst that was in the Motley Fool. Actually, I'll take that back. This was in a publication called Alpha. And this analyst basically still says that Activision Blizzard is still undervalued. Although if you compare that to what the people at Morningstar are saying, there's a difference of opinion. But one of the ideas is that a lot of people are still watching Activision Blizzard because of the popularity of Call of Duty. And they do have another publication that's going to be coming out late this year. So we'll see how that affects the valuation of the stock too. You have a lot of people staying home. You have a lot more people playing video games. And this is an extremely, extremely popular stock. If we look at the valuation of it, Morningstar pegs it as being overvalued. The last analyst said that basically it was still undervalued. Morningstar is looking at it from the standpoint of that the fair value is 66 and the last close is 81.99. Now the numbers down below it, that actually goes along with ASML, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to put them side by side here in just a minute. But I want to bring up just the idea is that one of the reasons why we haven't seen Activision Blizzard possibly as profitable as it could be is because they did expand in 2019 and they added on the games that you see here, and the profits fell by about 14% because they were expanding. Now, will that pay off? We'll have to wait and see. Now, when we take a look at this, I wanted to throw this up there because then compare it to ASML. Remember with ASML, I had the picture of the great big moat. Remember when we talk about moats, what that means? Moats mean profitability. Now, when we look at Activision Blizzard, we have to consider the fact that this is a consumer stock and consumers are fickle. So competition is high. And also we have problems with regulations on China, and China does have some, a company called Tencent does have some influence with Activision Blizzard and some connections. Also, The games from Activision Blizzard are also marketed in China. So if there's not as much trade that's going on with China, then that could impact the profitability of the company too. That's why when you look at this picture, you see it in compared to ASML, this company has a narrow moat. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have a wide moat. They do have an established presence in the gaming market, but it's not as wide and as resilient as a company like ASML. But let's move along there and see how we're doing. Okay, this is what happened in the last month. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because this was right after the earnings call for Activision Blizzard. We saw it go down a little bit, basically because they missed the mark slightly in their earnings, and being competitive, they might meet what's called some headwinds and some resistance from that standpoint. However, the coronavirus is one of those occurrences that's happened in the economy that reveals some companies as being more profitable than others. Gaming companies have profited from this because there's more people staying at home and there's more people playing games. So if we look at the cursor that dances around here, you'll see this is, again, we go back to the point of when the market fell, and when we go further on and we see when the market peaked out on Activision Blizzard and where we are today. Another thing about Activision Blizzard to keep in mind is dividends. This company, for a gaming company, it's unusual, but it does pay 0.5% in dividends. Now, I usually talk about insiders that are buying and selling, and this is going to be a little bit different today because one company tells you something, another company tells you nothing. When we looked at Activision Blizzard, what we saw is, even though that there are some rating companies that say that it's overvalued, there's a big call for this from an insider standpoint. There are significantly more buyers that are working inside of Activision Blizzard than there are sellers. In the past 6 months, we've seen 19 buyers compared to 9 sellers. In the last 3 months, we've seen an overwhelming 14-2 comparison. And over the past year, it's been 23-17. So we've seen more insiders buying than there are sellers. Now, when we get over to Activision Blizzard, when we get over to ASML, well, there's nothing, because it's a foreign company. It's an ADR, an American Depository Receipt. It's actually a company from the Netherlands. We don't know what's going on in the inside, but we do know how the company functions and its profitability. They do earning calls, and they are projecting more profits. So the idea is that it still has a wide moat based on the company's existence, but we can't really say anything based on insiders because we just don't know. When we throw up these two companies compared side by side, ASML Holdings compared to Activision Blizzard, you can see that ASML is actually pretty much, as far as a percentage standpoint goes, about the same as Activision Blizzard. They have some advantages from a profitability standpoint of what they do, even though they are both considered tech companies. They're significantly different. Where Activision is selling games, ASML is actually helping to create software and hardware to make those games operate. So it's a difference from that standpoint. Now, when I get to this part of the day, what I want to do is compare the ESG, or the environmental, social, and governance attributes of these two companies. Now, I show you this. If you follow me in past days, I put this up every day because I want to talk about these companies in comparison to the NASDAQ 100. When you look at the cursor that's dancing around, you can see the companies that are in less favorable ESG attributes, like nuclear power, GMO weapons, animal testing, gambling, alcohol, pornography, etc. And then as we go further down, you can see the more positive attributes that exist. I like to use a rating company called MSCI. They do a great job of rating the companies. I love their podcast. If you get a chance, listen to it. I think that it'll teach you a whole lot about ESG. Remember, ESG is environmental, social, and governance. ESG rating for ASML is very good. They rate them as AAA. The only thing that MSCI says that ASML could improve upon is they have opportunities in clean technology. But in other areas, they are leaders in corporate governance and also in human capital development. Now, one thing that I like to throw up here too recently, because I have had several people to ask me about the faith-based ratings. I use a company that's called Inspire to research faith-based ratings. And when we look at this from this standpoint, this is telling you if a company is biblically responsible or not. Anything that's going to be positive, if we take a look over at the Inspire impact rating, it says 33. The positive numbers are going to mean that this company is primarily biblically responsible in its operations. And when we compare that to Activision Blizzard, let's look at it at the MSCI ratings first. And remember previously when we looked at ASML, we saw that they had the highest ratings with MSCI, but when we look at Activision Blizzard, they're going to rate right in the middle around BBB. So if you're looking to create a portfolio of companies that are more responsible, this one would be right in the middle. And Activision Blizzard could probably do more with their carbon emissions in what they in their manufacturing and in their operations. So from that standpoint, MSCI just gives that they say that they're a laggard in that particular area. However, when we go over to the faith-based scores, the faith-based scores are still pretty good. It's not as high as ASML, but Activision Blizzard is actually rated positively by Inspire as a biblically responsible company. Okay, so that brings us to the very end of today. And I want to remind you that what we do as a company at Richards Financial Planning is we design financial plans that can help you avoid running out of money during retirement. If you would like to talk about how to use some of the stock strategies that we utilize, then go over to my website at richardsfinancialplanning.com. Go down to the teal button, which you see right here. Click on that, schedule a call to learn more, and you can set up a time that we'll have a telephone conversation about some of your concerns about retirement or about investing. And I'm glad to speak with you it's a free service that I make available. So if you would like to learn more about that, go on over to richardsfinancialplanning.com and sign up for a time, and you and I can get a chance to talk. I'd like to thank you for taking a few moments out of your day to listen to the information that I had available to you. Two very different companies today, ASML and Activision Blizzard. So join me again tomorrow at about 5 o'clock. We're running behind just a little bit today, but around 5 o'clock, we broadcast on a daily basis. And of course, you can always listen to this on the replay, which I know a lot of people do. And if you listen to this on the replay, please go ahead and enter in your comments. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Is there more information that you would like to hear about? If you have a question about anything that I'm talking about, make sure to enter it in, and I'll get back to you during the week through the platform and answer your questions. But till tomorrow, thanks a lot and have a great day. Stand by for the disclosures. We'll see you tomorrow.